Welcome to the Treasurer's Training Part 2. In this training, you will learn how to review the Minnesota 4-H Annual Club Financial Summary, input the starting balance into the October Excel checkbook ledger, understand the club proposed budget, how to handle income, and how to pay expenses. Please turn to page 6 and we'll get started with the hands-on training. You are the new treasurer for the Lucky Clovers 4-H Club. You just received the checkbook from the previous youth treasurer, organized your new treasurer book, and downloaded all the treasurer documents from the 4-H website. Activity 1, reviewing the Minnesota 4-H Annual Club Financial Summary. On the left of the screen and on page 6 in your workbook is a copy of Form B completed by the previous youth treasurer and adult advisor of the Lucky Clovers 4-H Club. It is part of the club chartering documents that need to be turned in at the completion of each year by November 1st. Let's look at Form B and learn how to read it. Box A, the blue box, under checking, reads $1,325.24. This was the starting balance in the club checking account when the previous treasurer took office a year ago on October 1st. Box B, the green box, $877.23. This is all the income that came in the account through the year. Box C, the yellow box, $1,551.81, are all the checks written, also known as the expenses. In box D, the white box, $650.66, where the black arrow is pointing, is the ending balance of the checkbook on September 30th at the close of the previous treasurer's term. That means that this number should be the starting balance in the checkbook on October 1st when you take office. Now this column calculated automatically for the previous treasurer because they used the treasurer's Excel checkbook ledger. Savings does not calculate in this document, so the previous treasurer would need to fill these cells in under savings. So again, box A under savings, the blue box, $557.23 was the starting balance a year ago on October 1st when the previous treasurer took office. Box B is a total of all income that came in. Box C is a total of all expenses that went out. And box D, the white box, is the ending savings balance on September 30th, the completion of the previous treasurer's term. Now on the right side of the screen is the Excel checkbook ledger for September, the last month of the previous treasurer's term. This document is like a paper ledger that you keep track of all the checks written and all the deposits made, but it's in Excel, so it will add and subtract for you. You can see at the bottom of the page there are tabs, and there's a tab for the Minnesota 4-H Annual Club Financial Summary. When income and expenses are inputted into this document, they will all automatically transfer to Form B, which is very helpful for your record keeping. You can see where there were only 3 entries in the September checkbook ledger. There were 2 checks written and 1 deposit made. The ending balance in the account on the Excel checkbook ledger is $650.66. And if you look at the gray box in the bottom left-hand corner where the black arrow is pointing, you can see that they are $650.66. This is the same number for the ending balance on Form B to the left, right where the black arrow is pointing. Because these 2 numbers match, you can clearly see that this is indeed your starting checkbook balance on October 1st. On the top of page 7, there are 4 questions for you to answer. You'll need to use the Minnesota Annual Club Financial Summary found on page 6 to answer the questions. Please pause the video at this time to answer the questions. And here are the answers. Number 1, the ending checking account balance in the Minnesota 4-H Annual Club Financial Summary is $650.66. And the ending savings account balance was $565.45. And does the ending balance in the checkbook ledger match the ending checking balance on the Minnesota Annual Club Financial Summary? That answer is yes. And what will the beginning checkbook balance on October 1st be when you start office? $650.66. If the answers are correct, good for you. If you made any mistakes, please check over your work and put in the correct answers, and let's move on. Activity 2, inputting the starting balance into the October checkbook ledger. On the left side of the screen and on worksheet number 1 is a copy of the October Excel checkbook ledger that you'll be using to record your income and expenses throughout your term. This is a running total of money coming in and out of the checking account. Keep in mind that you would have downloaded this document to your computer and you would type the numbers in so it would calculate for you. But for training purposes, I'm going to have you write it in. So in the blue box, starting 10-1, where the red arrow is pointing, I want you to handwrite in $650.66 as shown on the screen. This is the starting balance in our scenario when you start your position as club treasurer on October 1st. Activity 3, understanding the proposed budget, can be found on page 8. So Form C, the proposed budget, is on the left of the screen. At the start of each year, a club has to work together to create a budget that will meet the club goals. This is a summary of the income the club feels it will bring in throughout the year and the expenses they think they will spend throughout the year. So box A, where the red arrow is pointing, is all the money this club has in its checking and savings account. If you look at Form B on the right, the Minnesota 4-H Annual Club Financial Summary, which we just reviewed on the previous slide, in box F, where the red arrow is pointing, you will see where this number came from. The checking is $650.66, savings is $565.45. The total together is $1,216.11. That number automatically transferred over to Form C. Again, this document is also part of the Excel checkbook ledger, so this number was generated automatically through entries that were put into the Excel checkbook ledger. Now let's take the time to understand Form C on the left, the club proposed budget. The top is a list of income the club feels they will obtain throughout the year. Things listed are fundraisers, donations, member dues, with a total income of $770. The bottom portion of this document are the anticipated expenses the club believes they will have. This is the amount the club is willing to spend in each of these areas, with total expenses being $1,510. So this document will take the starting balance of $1,216.11 at the top, add in the proposed income of $770, subtract out the proposed expenses of $1,510, and anticipates having approximately $476.11 at the end of this year. So next September 30th. It still will be important for you to make sure the club stays within the budget. That's not always easy to do because expenses could be higher than anticipated. Let's answer the following questions found on page 8. Number 1, what is the total proposed income? 2, list one proposed expense. 3, what is the beginning balance? And 4, does the beginning balance on Form C match box F on Form B? Please pause the video and answer the questions. When you're ready, hit play. So here are your answers. What is the total proposed income? $770. List one proposed expense. You could have meeting expenses, club outings, or anything listed under expenses. What is the beginning balance? $1,216.11. And does the beginning balance on Form C match box F on Form B? The answer is yes. Activity 4, handling income. The following club meeting scenario will be used in our next 3 exercises. You are at your club meeting on October 7th. During the meeting, the club decides to go bowling as a club activity. The cost will be $12 per person for bowling and pizza. It is moved and seconded that your club will pay half of the cost, $6 per person, for members and their family members who want to participate. The bowling alley requires one check for the full amount be paid the day of the bowling event. The club is asking each member who wants to participate to pay $6 to the club before the event. Experience 1. Handling income received by check, found on page 9. Mary Farmer wants to pay for her 3 children, Danny, Joe, and Ann, as well as herself, to go bowling on November 25th with the club. She writes a check payable to the Lucky Clovers 4-H Club for $24. Mary hands the check to you. What do you do with it? In your treasurer binder, you will have a blank sheet protector or a pouch to put your money. This is your holding place for the money until you get home and can do your bookwork there. When you get home, you will record it on the itemized income form, which we will talk about later in the training. Exercise 2, handling income received in cash. When you receive cash, always count the money back to the person who gave it to you to make sure the amount is correct. You must always write out a receipt for when you receive cash and maintain that with your records. Cash receipts must be in numerical order. Numerical means like 1,200, 1,201, 1,202, where they just stay in order. If a receipt is missing, you must be able to explain why. Having cash receipts will help with the review at the end of the year. So in this scenario, Larry Fields wants to pay for his wife Betsy, son Carl, and himself to go bowling. He gives you $18 in cash. So the first thing you would do is count it back to Larry. 10, 15, 16, 17, 18, starting with the largest bill going down to the smallest. Now you both know that Larry did give you $18. Sometimes money can stick together, or a 5 can get mixed in instead of a 1, and it's just good practice to always count the money back to make sure the total's correct. The second thing, we're going to write out the receipt for Larry Fields for cash received at the club meeting. You must always have a receipt that matches cash. Now, just as a side note, if you have, let's say, 10 people turning in $3 each for maybe club dues, you can always write one cash receipt for $30 and have a list of each person that paid $3. Then you would simply attach the one cash receipt to the list and include that in your records. You would only write a cash receipt to the recipient if they asked for it. So number 3 says, put the cash in the clear sheet protector or in your book or your money pouch, so when you get home you can record it on the itemized income form and get it ready for deposit. So at this time, I'd like you to go ahead and fill the cash receipt out in your workbook. Remember to put the date it was received, which was October 7th, the person who you received cash from, the amount of cash to the far right. On the line below, you want to write out in cursive the number that represents the cash. Down at the bottom where it says for, what was the reason for this? And then by would be your signature. Once you're done filling in that receipt, there are 3 questions to the right that I'd like you to answer. You can find the answers for these at the bottom of the receipt. Please pause the video to fill in the cash receipt and answer the 3 questions. And when you're done, hit play for the answers. Does your receipt look like the one on the screen? I sure hope so. If not, go ahead and change it to make sure that it's right. If you look to the right on page 9, there's a box with 3 questions. What do you do with the receipt? And if you look at the bottom of the receipt, it will tell you to keep the original in the book, give the yellow copy to the customer, and attach the pink copy to your records. And activity 5, paying expenses. On the top of page 9, you'll find guidelines for writing checks and paying expenses. All expenses must be paid in the form of a check. Never use cash when paying a bill or making a purchase. All expenses must either have prior budget approval or be approved by a motion at a club meeting before being paid. Approved payments and motions must be recorded in the secretary's minutes. Be sure there's enough money in the checking account to cover the checks that are written. Always have a written bill, invoice, statement, or receipt that creates a paper trail before writing a check. Keep checks in numerical order. Again, this means 100, 101, 102. And when you're finished with one book of checks, make sure the next book of checks follows in numerical order. Here's some more guidelines for writing checks and paying expenses. Never sign a blank check. Oh, above that, record all checks in the Excel checkbook ledger. All checks need a youth and adult signature. Always use black, blue, or black ink. Name stamps are not allowed. Clubs should have duplicate checks, and if your club doesn't have these, you'll want to get that approved at a meeting and get those ordered. So here's our scenario for paying expenses. It was moved and seconded at your last club meeting for the club to spend $25 on supplies for the new club treasurer. Supplies include a new binder, tabs, plastic carrying tub, stapler, triplicate receipt book, 3-hole punch, paper clips, and a calculator. You and the adult advisor go to the office supply store on October 10th to make the purchase. The total cost for supplies is $23.27. Exercise 1, writing a check, paying expenses, found on page 10. So you're at Kenmore Office Supplies, and you can see in the upper left-hand corner, here's the receipt for the supplies that you purchased. And at this time, I'm going to have you write out a check, which is on the bottom. You can also find that on the bottom of page 10. Make sure you put the date. You can find that on the receipt, who it's made out to, what's the amount, and in cursive, write out that numerical number. In the memo, write the purpose of the check, and in the signature, make sure you sign it. If you don't remember how to write out a check, I put a copy of Mary Farmer's check on the screen. When you're done writing out the check, answer the 2 questions to the left. Who will sign the check? Write the purpose and check number on the receipt, and write the purpose and check number in the spaces provided. Please push pause, and when you're ready for the answers, hit play. Does your check look like this? If yes, great. If no, take the time to fix it before moving on. So question number 1, who will sign the check? Well, the answer is the youth treasurer and adult advisor. Make sure the check always has 2 signatures, 1 youth and 1 adult. Then number 2, write the purpose and check number on the receipt. The purpose is treasurer supplies. The check number is 103. And if you look at your receipt, you should have written treasurer supply and check 103. Note, there are 2 important things that you should remember. Number 1, when someone hands you a receipt to be paid, make sure you review the receipt to make sure all things purchased are for 4-H and not for personal use. And number 2, put the receipt in your clear sheet protector in your treasurer book or money pouch until you get home and can do your bookwork. Well, that concludes the end of the Treasurer Training Part 2. Please go to Part 3, where you will learn how to prepare the deposit and record income and expenses in the Excel checkbook ledger.